Okay, we're recording now. So anyone have any questions going back to day one? No? All right.
Can we
ahead.
go over the for loops again?
Okay. It would be my pleasure to do so.
Thank you.
So we have learned, let me take off my remote control from my dog. There. Okay. So we've learned a couple different ways of using a for loop, and we've also learned the while loop. Let's switch over to Replit, and I can demonstrate. Okay, so one way that we've learned is useful if you're counting, and you know for loops are great when you know in advance how many times you want to loop. So let's say so for some counter, and it's a variable. Give it any name you want. For let's say this one in range of 0 to 99, print counter. Okay, and that should give us an enumeration of the values between 0 and 99. Okay, we also found that we can enumerate other things like lists. So let's create a list. Okay, and we can replace the range with, so for counter in L, and this time I'll just change the name so for each value in the list, let's print those out. Okay. Now, sometimes you want both the position of something that you're enumerating and also the thing that you're enumerating. So we can get two values back from enumerate. And that would be, okay, so let's try that. All right, so at position 0, that found a value of 1. At position 3, index 3, it found a value of 7. So those are the different ways we've learned to use the for loop.
And isn't there a way to make it so that 1, or like the first thing equals 1? Or have it start at 1 instead of 0 in the enumeration?
Not in the enumeration. You can do that with range, however.
Oh.
You can always start at something other than 0 using range. Okay. Now, suppose we wanted to skip a few with the enumerate. So we could enumerate not the original list, but we could enumerate a slice of the list. So for example, if we start at position 1 and go to the end, let's try that. Now notice that it skipped the value, but the positions still started at 0. And the reason for that is the slice happens before enumerate takes over. So as far as enumerate is concerned, you gave it a smaller list. That's all. Okay. Here's a tidbit, some new knowledge. Sometimes when you have a function like enumerate that returns more than one value, And let's say you didn't actually want all of the values, you can substitute an underscore. That's just a place filler. Okay, so here is the same thing. However, I'm going to ignore the position return. So when you want to ignore one of the values returned by a function, you can use an underscore.
How is that different than not putting in the enumerate?
Not putting in.
Yeah, like before we did the enumerate.
But we did it like this.
Right.
Right. So suppose I had absolutely no use for the position. Well, then I wouldn't use enumerate, clearly, but this is,
right.
So this is contrived.
Okay.
So sometimes functions in Python return more than one value. And if you want to ignore one of the returns, you can use the underscore. Okay. Okay, so let me put this back and impart also some new knowledge. Let me write down, okay, so we had also adding print. And Sep, I know you can't see this. It's a note for me for the next class. So here's position and value. Let's take a look at that. Okay, now we've seen that you can override the line ending by saying end equals and give some other value. Let's watch what happens. Okay, so there's the same 3 lines. However, instead of using a new line, it used whatever I specified for end. Okay, so that's a bit of review, but let me show you some new knowledge. Let's use SEP. Anybody see a difference? Compare two runs up versus this run. 0, 3, 1, 5, 2, 7 versus 0, 3, 1, 5, 2, 7. So to make it a bit more clear, let me run that. Okay. So there's some new knowledge. I like new knowledge. Unfortunately, it usually either finds memory full, in which case the new knowledge goes away, or something that I used to know drops out. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, some more review questions. It could be a question from the book, could be a question for review.
This is just a question about the book. Is it graded on, I should look at this to the right thing. Is it graded on challenge or participation or both?
Both.
All right.
Yeah. So what I get is a spreadsheet. For each student, it will give me an aggregate, which is all put together. And then it also gives me every single individual question broken out.
In the
Okay.
book, can you do the last activity in 3.1?
Sure, I could do that. Let's go find that. And here, that's showing 3.1, the last activity or challenge?
Challenge, just the last thing at the very bottom.
Okay. All right, write two statements to read in values for my city, followed by my state. Don't prompt. Assign log entry with the current time, my city and my state. The values should be separated by a space. Sample output is given below. All right. And let me make this bigger. That's pretty good. Okay. So they want to get input for my city. So my city equals input, and they don't want a prompt. And then my state equals input, and they don't want a prompt. And then they want you to construct log entry from various, from these three variables. Let's see, they should be separated by a space, and it should be time day, a timestamp, and then a city, and then a state. Okay, so current time plus a space. This is one way of doing it. And then my city plus a space plus my state. And let's give that a try. Oops, what did I do?
You need an equal after the log entry and before current time.
Thank you. Okay. So, Victoria, was there a question about this that you'd like to ask?
I just wasn't doing the my city, my state with the input, so I was getting errors.
Okay. So other book questions or review questions?
There were actually a couple challenges that I couldn't really understand.
Okay.
Trying to find one of them.
Hello, Lily.
There was the last one on 3.3 with the names.
Okay. I hope it's not the name game one. Is it? I don't like doing that one. 3.3 let's get some. The puppy is getting big and big and big. Hey, hi, Fredo. Anybody got any puppy? Want some puppy time? Anybody have a cat? Puppy they want to show? Okay. What?
I don't have any animals. I live in the dorm, but I wish I did. We can't hear you.
All right. Testing, testing.
Good.
Okay, anybody hear me now? No? Yes.
We can hear you.
All
I can
right.
hear you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so anyway, it was 3.3, was it?
God damn it. Yes.
3.3. Okay.
And it was that name
Set.
game.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Okay. All right, so the following program includes fictional sets of the top 10 male and female baby names for the current year. Write a program that creates a set, all names, which contains both, and then a set neutral names that contains only names found in both, and then specific. So let's see, for all, they don't list all the answers, do they? Okay, great. All right. So let's see, all names. Let's see if we can do one at a time. So print. Oh, we wanted to do all, yeah, we have to say all names. All names. What happens if we try to just say male names and add to it female names? Will that work? And let's run. Let's see if we get. Okay, we couldn't do that. So let me take a look. Oh, okay, so the union. I don't use sets that often. Dot union. So add male names to and the female names together. Let's run that. Oh, okay. Was that what the problem was before? So let me just fill in dummy values. NEU neutral names equals let's see. So maybe just an empty would work. And then specific names equals that and that. Let's see if we can just get the first one to run. Okay. So all names I did correctly. That's the union. And let's see what else we can do. Union, intersection, and set difference. Okay, so for the next one, we want, for neutral, we want the intersection. So male names dot intersection with female names. Let's just try that. Okay, good so far. Do you have questions about union and intersection? Okay, so let's try the last one. Now it doesn't, in these operations, it doesn't matter which I use as the base object. So this time I'll use female names just because I can. And then it was what? Set difference, male names. And female name, I missed an S, didn't I? There. Okay, I thought I saw. Oh, sorry, it is just the word difference. I saw an extra. Okay. I wonder, let's see, what is specific contains only the gender specific names. I wonder if it does make a difference. It shouldn't.
Well, what it did right there was only print the female specific names.
Okay, let's see. Oh, maybe this is a trickier question than it looks like. Just try that, and I bet we get the.
Would you have to use the set asymmetric difference?
Oh, is that? Okay, why don't you tell me how to do that? You be the teacher. Male names, what's that?
Male names dot set underscore a dot symmetric underscore difference, and then female names in the parentheses.
Okay. I want to see that. That's not on this page, is it?
It should be in the table up a little further.
Up or down? Let's see.
Right
Set
there.
doesn't say set union, set. Okay, so it's just symmetric difference. Okay. Okay, and run that. Set has no
Symmetric
object.
has two M's.
Sorry, what?
I think symmetric has two M's in it.
Okay, let's try that. Ah. Yay, we did it.
Wait, I still have test aborted.
Okay, then I'm going to come
Specifically
here
use
and make that way bigger.
Male name. Oh, that just says male name.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's see. So I am curious. Let's see if we do get a different answer depending upon which one came first. Yeah, okay, we get the same answer. Good. Okay, other questions from the book or review questions?
You know what? If I'm allowed to get one more challenge.
Go ahead. I'm feeling
This-
challenged. Let's go.
This one is in 3.4 dictionary,
All right.
and it's
And
the last challenge.
3.4, this one. Write a statement to add the key Tesla with the value USA to car makers. Okay. So the way that you work with dictionaries is a lot like lists, but we just saw this. We had a set, which was A, B, C. So that's a set. And I can tell it's a set because there's no mappings between a key and a value. And there's no colons inside. Let's make this bigger. All right? So a dictionary is like a set in that a dictionary, like a set, has keys. But the only thing that a set can tell you is whether the key is present or not. That's what makes it a set. A dictionary is a little different. It has keys, but each key has a value. So we could add a new value by specifying the key and giving it a value. And it was, they want to see USA, right? Okay. So let's try that. Fiat is made in, what else did
Yeah,
they
I
ask me to
noticed
do?
that. I don't know. It
Modify.
says Egypt there.
Oh, I missed one. So modify the car maker of Fiat to Italy. So I need another statement. So car makers, and this time the key will be Fiat. And change the value to Italy. Okay.
If I may ask, why wouldn't we
Yep.
just go into the part that says Egypt and change it to say Italy? Or is that
We
just
did.
because this is what they're telling us to do now? Or without making another line of code to tell it not to do that?
Well, if they want us to modify the car maker of Fiat to Italy, this is how you would do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So how about one of the things that we're doing today is dictionaries. So I'll hold off on my what about. Okay, any other questions or for review? Okay. So Kieran, you doing okay? You have questions? Kieran?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so no questions there?
Nope.
All right. And Colin? Let's see, Colin P. We have two. Colin P.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Hey, so there's a homework, there's project due tonight, and there's also a reading, chapter 3 due tonight. But in chapter 2, there's still a number of people who didn't turn them in. And I'm wondering if you don't have the book. It would be mysterious to me as to why someone would be willing to give up 30% of their grade. So do the reading, and they're important. All right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
We don't have to actually submit anything. It's just like generated.
No, you don't submit anything.
Okay.
It's passive. So you do the work, and because it's online with this website, the website can pull the report for me.
So what, the projects don't have to be submitted?
So the projects. Oh, sorry. Did I misunderstand the question?
Or maybe I did.
Yeah, the projects have to be submitted. There's nothing to submit with regard to the reading. Okay. All right. So there's a little bit more new knowledge that I'd like to give out, and it has to do with functions. Functions are very important. So let's see. Let's say we had a function, and it took a parameter. Let's say p, and we can print p. Okay, so let's call it. Okay, you ready? Okay, notice that it says foo is missing one required parameter called p. Okay, and notice it also says it's positional. So what does that mean? And it's required. Well, so far, the only function that we've explored, that was part of your project 2, I think, which is do, is used 2 parameters, and they were both positional. So they both kind of look like this, maybe P and Q, and there. Now notice that foo isn't specifying any, so therefore it's an error. Okay, now I'm missing 2. So let me give it some values. Let's say okay, so now I've given it 2 values, and they carried through. So 1, 2, 3 went into P. and 4, 5, 6 went into Q. Let's run that again. So the first value went into the first position, the first parameter. That's why these are called positional. Okay, so these are positional parameters. So the first piece of new knowledge is that you can choose to give default values to parameters. So let's say you want the default for Q to be 999. Let's run this again. What do you think will print? Anybody? Will it print 999 or 456?
I think it'll be 999 because that was defined first.
Okay, let's see what happens. It's still 456 because I am sending 456 positionally into Q. Now, where the default takes over is if the argument is missing. So if you remember up here, it said that there's a positional argument missing. But what about now? Now you get the default. Okay. So that's what it means to have a default value for a parameter. And the second piece of new knowledge is to specify a name for the parameters, which you can say Q equals that. Let's put it to 4, 5, 6, and P equals 1, 2, 3. So notice these are no longer positionally, these are no longer positional parameters in that because I'm actually calling out the name of the parameter. So this says no matter what order I give the parameters in, P should get 1, 2, 3. And Q will get 4, 5, 6. So up here, we can say parameter Q has a default value of 999, and parameter P must be given. It's a required argument because it has no default parameter. Down here, example of named parameters, which can go out of order. Okay. So just wondering if anybody has any questions. Okay, so let's take a look. And let's see, I think that we have done this, and we've done this. We have done this, and we've done this. Oh, we've also done this. Okay. Now, I didn't ask if anybody had any project questions, so why don't we turn to that? Do you have any questions about your projects? Anybody?
Yeah, I have one. So I understand like why we're using functions in this, but I guess what I'm a little unclear on is how those functions are different than using like a for loop. In the example one that we did last week when we had the for loop print like as if a die was rolling like 1 through 6. I guess that kind of looked like it was already printing a histogram to me, so I'm a little confused on how a function differs from that.
Okay. So let's say you have a function which is 100 lines long. It's huge. It's bad practice, but you have a body of code 100 lines long, and you need to make use of it in more than one place in your program. So let's go to an editor, and so suppose you have need the 100 lines here. And then, you know, line, there's your 100 lines of Python. And then maybe someplace else in the program, you have a for loop. And then you need the 100 lines here. So it's the same 100 lines. And now this for loop is just enormous because it's got 100 lines there. Okay. So the value of making a function, one of the values, one of the virtues, is if you create a function out of that 100 lines, let's say, okay, then here, instead of making the rest of your code polluted with hundreds of lines each time you want to call this function, you just, then maybe someplace else in your code, you might have another call. And then maybe you've got a while loop. So the virtue of having made the 100-line set of code into a function is that you can use it again and again and again without repeating those 100 lines. So Sydney, does that help?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay. So another reason to use functions, whenever you are going to repeat code, make a function out of it. And another reason for doing that is if this has a bug, the bug appears only here. So you can find it here and fix it here. Now imagine or contrast this to not using a function, and you've got these 100 lines repeated again and again and again and again. You find a bug and you fix it in one place and you forget about the others. You still have a bug. So whenever you have repeated code and you make a function out of it, it means that it makes your program easier to debug and maintain. So the way I put it is write it in one place, test it in one place, and fix it in one place. Okay? So other questions? Okay. So some of the, okay, yeah, we were talking about project questions. Anybody else have any question about the project? Okay,
I have a question actually.
great.
So with the project, um, is it supposed to be like two people trying to like play with dice, and then is there supposed to be some type of commentary or no?
Well, only what the spec calls for. So no commentary per se. Did you have something in mind?
No, I was just thinking of it kind of like the last project, how there was kind of like commentary with the rock paper scissors, like
Ah,
with
ah.
the code. That's what I was thinking. But if there's no commentary, then
No commentary. This one's, this project's just much more, business-like, totally dry.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Very good. Now, let me check here. And so P2 is due tonight. And P3 has been assigned. And I've given a little extra time to do it. So rather than 7 days, there's longer. Now, folks, if you have more time to do it, it doesn't mean that you cannot do it longer and still try to do a mad dash the night before. So if you have longer to do the project, I implore you, beg you, beseech you to start early and knock off a little bit at a time. So let's take a look at P3. And it's actually a real program. We're going to learn how to use dictionaries, and we're going to learn how to use files. And the file that I'm going to give you is 1 word per line. It's the entire text of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And the idea behind the project is, after having read in the entire file, processing it, for example, making sure that all the words in your dictionary are lowercase, all of the keys. Then the heart of the program is to enter words into, you'll be prompted and you'll enter a word, and the program will tell you how many times that word appears in the book. So let's take a look here. So the is found 4371 times. Dog is found twice. Brown is not. Jumped is even found once. Over 58 times. And then if you enter quit, the program ends. Okay, so there's quite a bit of new material here, specifically working with dictionaries and also working with files. Okay, and as you can see, one of the things, there are 2 things I'd like to do today, is start working with dictionaries and start working with files. Okay. Once we master reading files in and looking at how to write files out, then all sorts of data processing capability becomes available to you. There's only so much you can do with random numbers. There's only so much you can do with input that you type in. As you go forward and use Python to do automate parts of your schoolwork, you'll want to use files that can be stored on disk and remembered and can grow very, very large. So that's where we're heading. Let's take a look here. So if you've done chapter 3, you've seen a bit about dictionaries. So let's talk about them. Dictionary is denoted by braces, but that could also be a set. So what really makes something a dictionary is if it has a key and then a colon and then a value.
Professor, are you typing?
And I'm showing the wrong thing. Yeah.
All
See,
right.
just once, I'd like to get through class. There. Okay, so here is a dictionary with only 1 item in it. So let's print D and see what happens. Okay, so this says that it's either a dictionary or a set with braces, and you can tell it's a dictionary because it has a key, colon, value. So I would say that a key maps to a value. How about a comma? And the keys and values, they don't have to be the same type. So how about the value 1 maps to true. Let's try that. So to see if, to see the value of a one member, we can say D1. Now that looks like an array reference, but because D is a dictionary, it'll go in and look for the key 1, and it should print true. Now, if you try to query a key that doesn't exist, it will be an error. Okay. So in a program like Project 3, before you add 1 to a word, let's make this a little bit more like Project 3. So dog and a colon and 0. So let's take a look at the value of dog. So the key is dog and the value is 0. Let's do that. And you can say something like D dog plus equals 1. So I'm adding 1 to it. I'll print it out again. Failed to connect. Connected. Woohoo! But I have to start over. So Python in class. Okay. So suppose you were in the loop that was reading the file, and you get the word dog, and you want to count that you found the word dog, so you add 1 to it. And you can see that the value changes from 0 to 1. But what about, okay, I found the word cat. And I want to add 1 to it. That's not going to work. Because cat, when line 3 is executed, it has to read the value of cat, which doesn't exist. In order to add 1 to it, it has to read the value first. So it might be nice then to check the list, check the dictionary before you attempt to read a particular key. You can do something like if cat in D, not in D, then D, put it in there without reading it. You're just creating a new value in the dictionary. Let's try that. Okay. So before trying to add 1 to the value of cat, I had to check to see if cat was in the dictionary. And if it wasn't in the dictionary, I need to put it in, initialize it with a value. Okay. At this point, let's print D. And let's print D again, and you'll see that okay, so line 5 added key cat with value 0. Line 6 added 1 to the value of cat. And you can see down here, both that cat was added to the dictionary and it has a value of 1. Anybody have any questions so far? how about this? I'll leave that there. So how about for the key in D, what would that print out? I wonder what that would do. Okay, so the dictionary is a collection, and it's a collection of the keys. However, this doesn't give you the values. So if I wanted to print all of the keys, well, actually, let me stick with this. Now I want to print the key and the value. So I would say D key. So the for loop gets me each of the keys, and then I print the key one at a time, and then the value of that key. Hey, we just learned how to use this, so let's do that. Let's do it again. Practice it. Okay. How about this? Print D dot keys, plural. Okay. So keys, I should have, that's returning a whole, oh yeah, I forgot a set of parentheses. There we are. Okay. And finally, we can also do print D dot values. Okay. So let me pose to you a problem and a question. Let's go back here. So let's compare. Okay, good. And I'm actually showing the right screen. Okay. So compare the work in finding one particular key in a list and a set and a dictionary. Okay, so I would like to know if a particular value is in a list, and you've done that. You could say for a key in a list, and it will tell you yes or no, true or false, right? Okay. Now you can also do this. You can do the key in a set and a key in a dictionary. But my question to you is what is the cost of each of these tests? You can do them, but let's say your list, set, and dictionary has 1 million entries. So the cost, what is the cost of finding a value in a list of 1 million entries versus the cost of finding a key in a set or dict? Anybody have any feelings?
What do you mean by
Or
cost?
the cost is, well, let's put it this way. If a list, if you were searching for an individual value in the list, how many comparisons would you have to make on average until you, or worst case, to find a particular value in a list. So you check the first one, item, check the second, check the third, check the fourth. And if ever you find what you're looking for, you can stop. But in the worst case, you have to check all million. So this is linear time. Okay, and I think I might have introduced the big O notation once. So this is linear, order n. So if you have n items in the list, the worst case is going to take you n comparisons to find the item. But that's different from key and dictionary. These are constant time or order 1. So this is pretty cool. No matter how many entries you have in a dictionary or a set, to look one up always takes the same amount of time, and it's just 1. You only have to do, instantly, Python can tell you if a key is in the set or dictionary, whereas in order to implement this, it actually has to search every single value in the list. So the bottom line, okay, there's somebody had a question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so set and dictionary are more convenient than searching a list.
Yes. So,
And then
yeah,
which one is better between set and dictionary?
They will be the same set in dictionary in terms of the speed at which you can find a particular value. Those are the same, but the big difference between set and dictionary is a set can only tell whether or not a key is present or not. But a dictionary can do that and store a value associated with the key. Okay, so if you need to do quote random lookup, then don't use list and use set or dictionary instead. Okay.
Yes. So is basically set and dictionary are kind of the same, except set is only the one value and a dictionary can store another value.
Okay, but let's be careful. That's essentially right, but we have to be really careful about what word you use. You used value twice. So sets store keys and dictionaries store keys and values.
Okay. And a
Okay.
key is like a keyword?
No, a key is whatever you want it to be.
Okay.
So in the case of the project 3, keys are individual words, and the value is the count of the number of times that word was found.
Understood.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can come up with an exercise for in class.
Yeah, my only other question, and I assume you're going to get to this in files, is we don't have to write out the entirety of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, right?
No, let's take a look at how to get that. If you go in the project specification, how to get the Word file. And I will now demonstrate. Okay. So I'm going to go to my REPL first and make sure that words is missing. Okay, so you see I don't have the words file over on the left. So I will go to the spec and I will click here, and that's going to download it. Okay, so it downloaded in my browser. There's the words. It's 3.6 megabytes. Then go to Replit and add a file. Well, wait, upload a file. the 3 vertical dots, upload, and go to the downloads, which you can't see what I'm doing because of a quirk of the Mac operating system. So instead of, let me do it again, only showing you the whole desktop. Okay, so here's the 3 vertical dots. And here is upload file. And then there's the document that I just downloaded. And choose that for upload, and it's done. Now you have the words.
Okay. Whoa.
Well, I wonder what that means. Ahing. Eyeing. He odd. She is eyeing. Okay. Hey, I wonder. Let's see. I wonder. Geez, there's a lot of words that start with A. Okay. Wait, is this Frankenstein? No. This is the wrong file.
Oh,
I've got to change this. This is not Frankenstein.
I was going to say, Miss Mary Shelley uses some interesting vocabulary.
Yeah. I put online the wrong file. So this is actually a file of words. So I wonder what echinocarp means. So anyway, I'll fix that. Not a problem. But you'll get the file the same way. I put the wrong file online. Okay. So let's read that file since it's here. Could you go ahead and do whatever it is that I just did? So you download from the spec. It's the wrong file, but that won't matter. So click here. It'll download to your download directory. And then you can go into Replit and upload. Okay. So let me give you some time to do that. Tell me if you have any problem.
When you announced this project like a couple minutes ago, I immediately went down to the file and clicked on it because I remember reading this ahead of time and not knowing what that was. And the same list of words came up. And because I forgot that there were thousands of them, I was scrolling. And I think that's too much for my laptop to handle. So it's just giving me that colorful spinning wheel loading thing.
And what program are you trying to use that's causing the spinning?
Text edit.
Okay.
Like,
well,
I'm not
force
using
quit it.
anything. It's just when I pulled it up after it downloaded.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was able to download it, by the way.
Okay.
Download it and upload it to REPL.
Good. Now, over on the right-hand side, I'm going to use a Linux program called word count. And I'll just take a quick peek at what's in this file. There are 341,000 words. Okay. So 341,138 words. Okay. So tell you what.
Can I ask why there are 3 outputs there?
Okay, the first one is the number of lines. The second one is the number of words. And the third one is the number of characters.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Now, since it's 1 word per line, the first 2 have the same value. Okay, so let's learn how to open a file for reading. And you say that the file for input, this is just the name, fin, file in. Okay, you can call it anything you want. And use the open and give it the name of the file. Okay. And this isn't going to produce any output, but let's see if it works. Good. It opened. Now it's closed again. Now to close a file explicitly, you would say input file.close. So you have to open a file and be a good camper and leave the campground as clean as when you found it. So you open a file, you close the file. Okay. So let's try just W equals, let's see what happens when you do this. Print W. Whoop, that's not what I expected. Control C. So reads the entire file. Maybe I should be doing this in the console. So input file equals open and words.txt. Now let's do a dir of input file. Let's see what we can do with a file. Okay, so we can read. We could read one line. We could read all of the lines, but into a list.
What does dir mean?
dir is when you have an object in Python. Let's see, for
Tells you
example,
what you can do with it?
yes.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
My other question is, when you have your REPL and you have multiple files, you can access different files in the same REPL from different places?
Yes. Well, from the shell, you can get access to anything you have.
Ah, okay.
Not from the console, though.
Okay.
Okay, so that was read, and it read everything and put all of it into W. But let's try read line and try that. That read one. Something interesting. Do you notice anything odd about what it just printed out? Anything at all? Now the first word is the letter A.
And then it printed an empty line?
Aha, that's what I was after. Okay. So when you used read line, you got the entire line, including a new line at the end of it, new line character. All right. Let's try read lines and see what that does. This gives us a little bit more, Control C, a little bit more information. So read lines returns all of the lines in the file, but as a list, a Python list. And if you look here, you can see that there's a new line character at the end of every line. So I wonder, let's go back to read. I wonder if you can tell me, read line, sorry. I wonder if you can tell me how to get rid of that new line. Now, there's a straightforward way of doing it, leveraging the fact that it's always the last letter. Okay. Have we talked about getting a portion of a string or a portion of a list? Maybe using slicing. So tell you what. So why don't we print? And we want to start at the beginning, but end before we get to the last character. So the length of W minus 1. Let's try that. Okay. All right, so here's the program I'd like you to write. Okay, write a program that opens words.txt, which you can actually see there, and one at a time reads each line and strips the last character, which is the new line, and let me get rid of this so I can put the and on this line so you can see that there's more, and prints the word and the line number it appears on, stopping at line 100. Okay, see if you can do that. Line 8 looks pretty good already. Oh, I should say, and closes the file. So here's the close. And what should we do here? Yeah, well, I need a counter, right? Do I need a counter? Because it's supposed to be printing out line numbers and stop after line 100. So how about we create a counter? Okay. Now we need something to loop.
We're going to use a while loop
Ooh, good. Why?
because it's while the line is less than 101. so that it stops at line 100. Yes?
Okay, let's try it that way. Sure. Yep, that'll work. So while counter is less than or equal to 100 or less than 101. And we could do W equals stripped off the last character and then print. And we could do counter and the word. And let's use sep equals, I got a shiny new toy. I want to keep using it. Now, would this one work the way I have it? Is this good? Anything wrong with this? Okay, something tells me it's not quite right. What am I missing?
It's assigning each line to 0, so it needs to not do that.
Well, what it's doing is we're not assigning anything to counter. We're not counting. Right? Okay, that's what was missing. Let's try it again. Let's see, where did it get that? Line 15. So somehow, okay. All I have to do is save it again. All right. Okay. How about we use read lines instead of read line? So write a program that opens words.txt and uses read lines to read all of the lines into a list, print, then close the file, be a good camper, and print the number of words in the file. Okay. Can you do that? We'll just call this lines because really it's lines. Okay, so this one, what this program is missing so far is just 2 lines of Python. Just 2 lines to do all that. So I'll create a variable, which is the list. Read lines returns all the lines individually in a list. So all lines equals input file dot read lines plural. And then how do you get a count of the number of lines in all underscore lines? What should I print out?
The length.
Yes. Yes. LEN, all lines. Okay, let's try that. Isn't it amazing how fast it was to read in the entire file? Okay, so I'll give you a moment here, and then we'll do one final exercise. So we haven't used dictionaries, but that's okay. So one final program. So write a program that opens words.txt and uses read lines to read all of the lines into a list. Close the file and choose a word for, choose a line to print the word of the day. Since we know that each line is only one word. And then you have to write something that goes there. And also there's another line that's missing. There's a hint. Okay. So can you tell me, anybody tell me what I should add over here? That there's something missing? Give you a hint from?
From random, import random.
Okay, yes, import, but let's use choice instead. And then? Oh, here's a good one. Anybody have any clue? To me, that looks like, on my screen, it looks like I just misspelled 40. Let's try another word of the day. Scant. But darn it, I've got that new line back again. Groggery. I bet the definition of groggery is to behave in a drunken or foolish fashion. Now I'm curious. Let's look up groggery. Definition is a liquor store. Okay, well, at least I had a drunken in there. So it's pizzeria or a groggery, right? Two types of stores. Yeah. Anybody know where the word groggery derives from? Comes from the Royal Navy. So have you ever felt groggy? Same word. But it turns out that it has a, I love digressions. So how about Royal Navy grog? All right. And it was named for the, where's the British Vice Admiral Edward Vernon invented grog which is the what they would do. They would add water to rum to stretch the rum supply and feed it to the sailors. Okay, so that was grog. Okay, that was fun. All right, so they still have, I still have the extra new line here. Can you tell me how to get rid of that? It was a slice, but where should I put the slice in? Okay. How about we try it here? So from the beginning to the end, you know what? I can't do it there, can I? So, well, let's see. Will that work? Huh. There, so there's a slice. A lot of good words in here. That one I have no idea what it means. I have no idea what Bealdy means. Okay. All right, with 10 minutes left, does anybody have any questions?
Do you have to use a slice, or can you use the end equals and then like the empty space?
Let's try it and see what happens. I'll get rid of the slice. And there'll be a good little lesson here. End equals empty. Let's try it again. Oh, it worked. I'm surprised. Oh, the reason it only appears to work. Okay, so if this was not here, cool. All right, it's a good one. This would be like a bug without knowing you had a bug. So if we don't do anything special, we've got two new lines. One is embedded in the word, and the other is caused by print. So this appears to work because we get rid of one of them, the one caused by print. Okay, so if that's all you needed to do, then yeah, I suppose this works. So good idea. That was a very good idea. Okay, any other questions?
I'm not getting any output when I do this.
Okay, so when you run the program, what in the shell over here, what happens?
It just immediately takes me over to the console, like nothing happens.
All right, I'm going to make it so that you can share your screen. And if you wouldn't mind, share your screen. Go ahead. Okay, read lines. Okay, and in the shell, could you run it? So say, whoop. Okay, so what's going on is that big green friendly run button runs it in the console. And so click on shell and say Python space example.py. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Today we learned quite a bit in several different areas. We learned some new things about parameters to functions. We learned to use SEP, SEP, in the print statement. And we can now open and close a file. And we could read all the lines into a list. We saw how to read one line at a time. We also saw how to remove a new line character from the end of a line. So we did quite a bit. We answered a bunch of questions. So with that, if there are no other questions, we can see you on Thursday. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.